Welcome to another episode of the Move.Talk.Thrive podcast. Today, we are talking about one of our favorite topics, and that is our reading habits and our favorite books in various different topics and areas and subjects. So, today we are going to unpack some of our favorite books that we've read, some books that we're reading at the moment, and some habits to set you up for reading books and always learning. I cannot wait to share this episode with you, so let's get stuck in. We are child development obsessed business besties and mums, and we're here to spill all our secrets.
We have a combined 30 years experience working with children, and each episode we will bring you up-to-date research and evidence-based strategies to set your children up to thrive.
I'm Lizzie Dawson, Australian exercise physiologist.
I'm Emily Mackey, Australian speech pathologist,
and this is the Move.Talk.Thrive podcast. Em, what are you reading right now?
Right now, I am reading. So for fun, I always have a fun book I'm reading. I'm reading Billy Foster Blake's new book, Things Will Calm Down Soon, which I was going to recommend to you, Lizzie, because it's about a girl who's an entrepreneur and she's opening her business, and it goes through all of that journey. So I was like, we will love that. Anyone in business will love that.
So that's a novel.
Yes, it's just newly released, maybe like a month ago.
Oh, perfect. I will grab that one.
Yeah, it's really good. And the business book that I'm reading at the moment is called Inspiring Accountability. I'm reading it with my team as well, so our leadership team. So Michael, Bree, and Sal by Elena Noel or Noel. What are you reading at the moment?
I am reading a Sally Hepworth book, Family Next Door, I think it is. So that's my novel. So I like to read a non-fiction in the morning and a fiction at nighttime. So I am reading that at nighttime, which is, I've just started. So that's all. It always takes me a little bit to get into. And then I'm reading Beyond Entrepreneurship, like it's the second edition. So it's 2. So Beyond Entrepreneurship 2 by Jim Collins and a colleague of his, which it's Bob someone. That is really good. So that actually has been recommended to me by a couple of people, one of which is my brother, and he's just read it. And it's just a really good leadership book. So I'm really enjoying that.
I ordered that.
Did you?
So yeah, for those who are looking for it, because Lizzie told me about it, I ordered it, but because it's in the second edition, because it's a really old book and I've just redone it. So I think it's coming out soon. So I just put it on pre-order. So I'm just
I got it.
They released it. Yeah, I don't know, but I got the hard copy of it. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was recommended. My brother sent me something on Instagram. And the founder of Netflix said his advice to any people starting out in business or entrepreneurs was to memorize the first 86 pages of that book. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. And yeah, it's been really good so far.
So I'm going to ask you, in 6 months' time, have you memorized the first 86 pages of that book? That would be insane. That's insane.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, well, I'll try. He said he reads it every year. He reads it every year.
I think as business owners, right, that's a trend. We always have certain books that we like and we gravitate to, and we always feel the need to go back and revisit them because every time you read it, you get something new, or it's just the mantra of how you run things or live your life. That book for me is 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which everybody knows that I rave about. Is that the same for you, Lizzie? What's that book for you?
Yeah, so I've read that one about 3 times. I'm actually this year I have read about 4 books for a second time. Some of those are The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. That's a really good one. Just when you're kind of getting to the next level or trying to step into the next level. And another one is The Soulful Book of Successful Businesses, or where I wrote it down. It's by Nicole Bayliss. That was recommended to me by Soulful Successful Business Book, yeah, by Nicole Bayliss. So that is a really spiritual book, and so really good if you're going through anything challenging, just to kind of reconnect to your spiritual side and your faith, and not necessarily religious, but it's got lots of uh, information on the law of attraction, for example, and good for like manifestation and prayer and affirmation and things like that. So just a really good one when you're trying to reset. I get that in my morning practice, which is cool.
Have you always been a reader?
No, I hated reading my entire life, and it's really interesting because I'm sharing this with my kids because my eldest son, Flynn, does not like reading. And I think it's just that we don't find it easy. And so he's 7, so he's kind of obviously at the start of his reading independently journey, and he doesn't like it. And I said to him, I didn't start reading until I was about 30, and I am devastated because I've lost so many years of reading. Like I do it every single day now, twice a day. I love it. But I think for me, I started reading when I started business because I was like taking these big risks. I was in this unknown area, and it really stretched me and started my, I guess, journey of self-discovery and growth and development. And then that has just like, so it started with nonfiction business books, and then more recently, probably in the last 3 years, I've just been obsessed with novels as well because it's just, I don't know. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. So good. How about you? You would have always been a reader, I'm sure.
Yeah, I was that kid who my parents would put me to bed, and I don't even know like how young I would have been. And then 3 hours later, they would come to go to bed and check us, and I would be under the covers. I don't know if I had a torch or what. There's no phones back then. And I would
Mm.
still be reading, and my mom would be like, "What are you doing? Like, you've got school in the morning." And then I would get up early in the morning so that I could get myself dressed, and then I would read before going to school because I was so addicted to the novels that I was reading. They weren't
Mm.
business. They were like,
Yeah.
they were all stories. It was all just stories. So I think I love stories, and I love a good imaginative, play on words and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
My mum, like, she says that she instilled reading into us from a very young age. She would always read to me every single day as a child, which I think now, having my own children, that, like, that has a big impact on how your
Mm.
children see words and see books, and it's the imagination behind it, which is
Mm.
play, which we know that that's how children learn best.
Mm.
But I loved reading. So I found that this was a really good reflection because me and Liz have put together a list of books for you guys to talk through in different areas. And I thought, oh my gosh, I have read so many books on business since since I started over 10 years ago. And that sort of genre never interested me before. Like, I was more just into reading novels. And so it's interesting, I guess, like all the different types of things that you can learn about life in different genres. But yes,
Mm.
I loved reading, and I smash through books. I have a Kindle, so I smash through
I can't
books.
do that.
Oh,
I need a book. It was particularly with nonfiction. I need a book because I write through it and highlight, and
yeah.
it becomes like a journal.
In saying that, I think with my business books, I read them on Kindle because it has to be practical. Like, I often am reading, at the park, or like while the kids are
Mm.
playing, or at the beach over January school holidays. So that's good. And then what I do is, then if I really love it, then I'll buy it.
Mm.
I then go through and highlight. But on the Kindle, you can go through and highlight. And I've been using my Kindle a lot with our business meetings this year, because often I'll read a book, take it to our leadership team, because we are always doing a book. We do a book every quarter in our leadership team.
Mm.
And so then I find it easier with the Kindle because it then bookmarks
One
everything. So
place.
you don't have to go back through going, what was that page? You can just pull it all up and go, I highlighted all of these things and they're all on this one
Mm.
screen. So I found that Kindle has been
Mm.
super helpful, but also with my
Mm.
eyes. I
Yeah.
need to have the font bigger, and I find the font really difficult to read without my glasses in a paper book. So I like that I can adjust it.
Maybe I need to get a Kindle. That sounds really good.
Absolutely. I have like 3 Kindles. I love them. Not because the memory runs out, just because every time a new one comes out, I just want to get it.
Oh, wow. I think you've just you've stepped me to the next step of reading. I feel like
Yeah,
I'm going to be a
they're amazing.
converted.
They're amazing. And then I often find so with the business books that we've been reading, our business has been on the Patrick Lencioni train, which we've been talking
Yeah.
about. So we often refer to Death by Meeting, which is one of his books, The Advantage, one of his books, and then the Five Dysfunctions of a Team. And so in a leadership meeting with my team, I sometimes need to pull up all three books. And so I can easily do that on my Kindle. I don't need to be planned about it. I'll
Mhm.
just be like, oh, I know that we need this piece of information right now to help us. That was in Death by Meeting. I've got my Kindle and I just look it up. So I find that that's a bit more practical from a business point of view, having the Kindle as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Anyway,
interesting. Does your team like reading?
Bree, no, absolutely not. Michael, no, he's a bit like you. He's never read, but now recognizes the importance of it. And
Mm-hmm.
so he's switched to Audible. But then he's
Mm-hmm.
found with Audible, so Audible is audiobooks.
Mm-hmm.
He has found that then he doesn't implement them as much
Mm.
because he gets through them, but then he misses points and it's sort of
I'm
all
the
up in the
same.
air. So,
Yeah, I've tried both. I feel like I need to, like with Beyond Entrepreneurship, I'm doing both. So I'm listening to it when I walk and then I'm reading it
mm,
before I walk.
with really long books, it's helpful to have Audible and do that. And you don't need to have Audible in saying that. You can, every local library has a membership and you can get that membership and borrow all the audiobooks for free. And that's also all business books for free. So if you can't afford it as a student, that's an option.
Mm.
But so I think the audiobooks are good if you're exercising, and we know that movement helps you retain information and remember. So that's really good. But
Hmm.
then you have to make sure that you're implementing. Sal likes reading, she just doesn't have a lot of time for it.
Yeah.
So what we sort of do with our leadership book club, the reason why we do it is we found that we always need to be doing professional development with our leadership team. So either we identify an area that we want to work with our team, and then we find a book or an author that we know and we read the topic. We'll then meet like weekly or fortnightly. Often we just do 30 minutes of lunch and we just have a chat about what we're learning and then how we want to implement it.
Hmm.
Other times what we do is I read it and then I'll in-service the team, right, as
Hmm.
we need to what the relevant parts of the book are, if that's quicker. But I've worked like that in the business for, I'm thinking over 5 years.
Yeah.
I just find that, like we're saying, all these business books, they have become my mentors. So, all the authors have become my mentors and then have helped me to shape the business to what it is today. So when
Yeah.
people talk about mentoring, your mentors can be in through the books or through the podcast. You don't have to actually be paying someone for coaching. That's like the next level. But this is also, a really great option.
I get so much out of reading. Like I just learn so much and find that I'm quite good at implementing things. I think you get lots of ideas, and I think you can go back and revisit, which is really good. And I try to every quarter, like take my biggest learnings from the books and then document what I'm going to implement from it. But then I think when you've got like, that next step of an in-person mentor, you've got that accountability, whereas with books, you need to depend on yourself. But I think what you're talking about with your leadership team, that is a really good like accountability. Like those book clubs are a great accountability to even just to unpack your interpretation or your experience or whatever it is, your reflection on the topic.
Yeah, it helps you learn more because when you read it, then you've got to talk about it and share it with somebody, then interpret your learnings and then go, how is this going to help us? And the topic we're always reading is relevant to what we find as a gap in the business. So if
Yeah.
you're reading something and you're like, oh, this is the solution to our problem, you feel so good. You feel like hopeful in business. Whereas it's nothing worse than doing, I mean, I keep saying business, but it's doing something challenging, doing something new, and feeling like, I don't know how to solve this. I don't know what to do about this.
Yeah, and I think also going, feeling isolated and perhaps alone that you're going through this and everyone else is doing so well because, Instagram and the highlight reels that we're seeing around us. But I think when you read a book, particularly like, one of my favorite books is Think, Grow, Rich. And it's just I think that was written like, I don't know, years and years and years ago. Like
Oh,
years and years and years ago. But it's all really relevant, and you see those topics pop up in all the most recent books. So it's really, I think, comforting to go, well, if someone's writing a book about this, I'm not the only one that's been through it.
yeah, absolutely. That is so true.
Some of your team are not readers. My team definitely not, and obviously myself, it's a fairly new habit. Do you have some habits around reading? Like I talked a little bit about I read my business books in the morning and my novels at night. Do you have any little habits or hacks around getting it in?
So in terms of habits, no, because I think it's something that just comes so naturally to me. Like I don't have to force myself to do it. But I would say that something that I do is I use it to help me wind down at night. So I will always read my novel at night. Um, but I feel like I don't need to be encouraged to read. So if I have a moment, I will read. And then it's just a balance between if it's a business book or a personal book. And I really just go by what my mind needs. So for reading,
Mhm.
for me, it is to relax. It is to prevent burnout, to calm down, to get me to be mindful. So I know that I need to do it, but it's not something I have to force. So I think people can relate to that if you're, I don't know, if you like to exercise, no one has to force you to exercise. If you like to read, no one has to force you to read. You're
Mm.
probably different though. You're a bit more structured, are you?
Yeah, well, I feel like a couple of things. So one, I feel so good when I'm reading and learning, and I think it really is good for my mental health, like, and just even that piece on understanding that other people have been through this and that there's strategies. So it's kind of like having a conversation with mentors. So I really get so much out of that. I've just put that into my morning routine for a part of my mindset morning routine. And then with novels, I have to be really careful. And this was never the case before, but I once I get into a novel, I can't put it down. So I will be up till, midnight, 1 o'clock reading a book. So I think what I was doing was I was not reading at nighttime, and then I would only read novels on the holidays, and I would just get through like 4 novels each holiday. So that was a habit. But now I'm finding that I'm just scrolling on my phone before I go to bed. So I'm trying to replace that with reading a novel and just putting some, things in place so that I go, okay, at 9:30, I need to stop reading, no matter what's happening in the book, or,
Mm.
just have some boundaries around it. Uh, but I think I don't do business books, for example, on holidays, because I feel like I just want to detach from that learning and development and the business, because I feel like with them, when I'm doing the business books, I really am reflecting, and I'm like, oh yeah, I've got to do this with my business, and I've got to do this, and da 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 da. And so I really make sure that I don't do those on holidays, so that I'm having a decent break and I just get stuck into the novels. But yeah, I definitely have my daily habits, and when I'm encouraging anyone around me to read, because I quite often get people reaching out to me on Instagram and just saying, you know, who do you recommend for mentoring? Or I talk a lot about on my Instagram about my own personal development and journey. And so I get people reaching out about that. And the first thing I suggest to them is to read books and look at because I quite often refer to books in my posts. So I will say, I'll share books on my posts and maybe give them a go. And the first thing that they'll say to me is, I don't have time. And I'm like, get up half an hour earlier and do it in the morning before your kids wake up. Because even I just think it's so good that my kids come down in the morning and they see me reading a book in the morning. Like that's, I think, really, really important role modeling. I'm not on my phone, I'm not on the TV, and then I get, go for a walk. But yeah, so that's just some of my habits that I've developed. I set goals around books as well. So because I'm not a reader, I what I find, and I think this is how I got it into that morning habit, was I always try and put whatever I'm struggling with first up in my morning routine. So if I'm struggling with my strength training, that will go first for a while. If I'm struggling with reading and I really want to get back into that habit, that will be first in my morning routine. If I'm struggling with meditation or journaling, they'll go first up. At the moment, I'm just getting so much out of the reading, so that's first up for me. But I kind of, that goes through, you know, stages. I think sometimes it's there and sometimes it's not. But yeah, one of my recommendations to people is to do it first thing in the morning if that's something that you've identified you need to get in, and that will help you.
Yeah. I think a lot of people will be able to relate to that and will find that really, really helpful if you're not a reader or if you're wanting to structure your reading.
Mm.
Just listening to your talks made me think I don't set goals with reading. Like
Mm.
I don't think that's a bad thing, but then I'm like, oh, I don't know. Like it's always good to be curious and to question everything that you do. Um, but I think the reading like business books for me is the solution to a problem, right?
Mm.
So, actually, that's the way it always is, right? So, whether it's personal development or professional development or business development, the content of the book is the solution. So, if I really need to read something, I will read it really, really quickly. But then I find, say, we're then implementing, like one of the books we've been implementing is Death by Meeting by Patrick Lencioni. And so then I don't read another business book for ages because
Mm.
I'm focused on implementing that and I don't want to take on any new
Mm.
information. So I think I have goals, but probably could take a leaf out of your book, Lizzie.
Mm.
But I guess it's different, right? It's just different perspectives. It's what comes naturally to you. And I love reading. So
Mm.
it's something that I always would do in my life, whether I need to or not. So let's talk about what books we would recommend for people. So we've got a freebie that will be attached to the show notes for you. So you can download and get our exhaustive list of books under all the categories, but we'll go through some of the most impactful ones or the essential ones that we think. So, Lizzie, what are your essential books under people management or team? I feel like that always seems to be a hot topic with business owners or managers.
Yeah, definitely. And I think this is also because I think it's one of the toughest things in business. So, and probably something that can really unsettle you. So, it's a popular topic in terms of books. So people management, I put down Seven Habits because I think that one of the things that I'll always remember from Seven Habits, which was a really good reflection point for me, was just his process for delegating. And that's just stuck with me. Like I don't even have to look at my notes. I don't have to read the book again. I know what his recommendations are around delegating and setting people up for success. The Advantage I thought was also really good. So you got me onto that this
That's by
year.
Patrick Lencioni. Yep.
Yep. And The Five Dysfunctions of a Team, also really good. So I actually did that one as an audio book, and I just ordered it to read it. So similar to what you were saying, like you read it on your Kindle and then you'll buy the book. So I had a big drive, so I listened to it, and there was just so many pearls of wisdom, particularly around leadership, I thought. Crucial Conversations, I thought was really, really good as well. 1 Minute Manager was also really good and a really quick read. And then the one that I'm reading at the moment, Beyond Entrepreneurship, is also a really good leadership and people manager. And I guess like the common theme I think from managing people is to master managing people, you need to be able to manage yourself. So I think it's like leadership and people management kind of go into one. What are yours?
So for people, I really liked, well, I think managing a team and leadership sort of goes hand in hand
Mm.
because, like you said, you need to lead yourself. So I really like The Five Languages of Appreciation in the Workplace
Mm.
by Gary Chapman. And I like Leaders Eat Last by
Mm.
Simon Sinek, Death by Meeting, which is about team, but it's also then about running meetings in your business. So a bit of
I need to read
systems there. Yes. And Dare to Lead by Brene Brown.
it.
Oh,
Mm.
and also Never Lose an Employee Again by Joey Coleman. I
Mm.
really liked that one. So I think with the books, what I've found is that you've either got a book that's really inspirational and has lots of good, I guess, like revelations for you. Like it might say, you know, this about people or this about team or this about business. And that's really inspirational to read. I more gravitate to those types of business books on any topic. There are certain books where they're more like very like structured system business books. And so they're
Mm.
like, do this, do this, do this. I really struggle to get through those books because
Mm.
I I like the details, but I like the details in implementation straight away. So I hate just reading like and reading. So I would say that Never Lose an Employee Again by Joey Coleman was a bit of that systems book.
Mm.
And it was really good. I knew what I needed, but I struggled through it. So just if you're going to read it. And
So
I
just
also,
on that,
yeah,
so you don't like it when they kind of map out a system and a template almost of how to.
I do like a template. It's when it gets really nitty gritty
Yeah.
and I just find it really dry.
Yeah.
I read it, but I struggle. So Joey Coleman's book was like that. So
Mm.
what I find is if you're running a business, I find that it would be more helpful for my managers on the ground to read that book rather than myself.
Mm.
And me sort of more read like the five languages of appreciation, which is a bit more
Mm.
visionary, inspirational, and it does have a system to it that you implement in the workplace. But I don't know. I just that's what I found in reading these kinds of
Mm.
books. Death by Meeting, I loved it, but it was super detailed. So I got through it and I've implemented it in the business, but it was dry towards the end and I was
Mm.
struggling because it was so detailed, which is what you need. But I think, you know, we always talk about burnout and all those kind of things and you know filling up your cup, and so it's knowing what these books are and knowing, okay, I might need to read a novel after this book, or I might need to do something that fills my cup because these details might be draining. If you're not that kind of person, you can relate to me. So
Yeah.
Leaders Eat Last, I found that that was good. It was a bit long, so it did take discipline to get through it, but again, a really good book.
That's
And
Simon Sinek, right?
yeah, Simon Sinek. So anything on Simon by Simon Sinek is marvelous. That's what I first started with in business. You and me both probably.
Yeah.
What's Your Why? The Infinite Game, Leaders Eat Last. Those books are just foundational for if you're starting out on a journey of management or leadership or business. And then I guess there's some pioneers in the business industry like Marshall Goldsmith.
Mm.
Simon Sinek is also one of those. There's also John Maxwell. He talks a lot about leadership books. And I guess Brene Brown is also, so she's got loads of books about courage, vulnerability. Those people you can, I don't think you can go wrong with any of their
Jim
books.
Collins.
Yeah, Jim Collins, yes, Good to Great.
He's beyond entrepreneurship too.
Yes, yes.
Mm.
So maybe let's talk about so people management. What about uh
Mindset.
mindset? I was going to say that mindset. What's for
So
you, Izzy?
mindset for me was The Big Leap. That's been a really instrumental book. Gay Hendricks is a psychologist. And I read that in like 2 days. I've just read it for the second time. It's all about basically putting a glass ceiling on yourself. So just basically how you self-sabotage when things are going well, and how to kind of break through that mindset and give yourself permission to live the life that you want to live and to be joyful. So that was a really good book for me, hence reading it another time. Think, Go Rich was another one that already mentioned. I've read that one twice as well. Really interesting. And this is something that I've learned with many books that I've read a couple of times, is depending on the experience that you've had in between, where you're at the time, you digest it a really different way and you notice different things about it when you go back. So I read Think Got Rich, is it Think Got Rich?
Think, grow rich.
Grow Rich, yes, sorry. So that I read and it was like, oh, how do I manifest? Because I was like trying to, take my business in terms of, size. And then I kind of went through this big spiritual healing couple of years. And then I read it again and I was like, actually, this is really spiritual. And I had not even picked up, and I found that with so many of the books, that there was a spiritual element, which I really, really liked because I was not even, it's almost like that part of me was shut down for a really long time. I went through this big kind of awakening and healing. And now when I reread books, or every book that I read, and they're by these, entrepreneurs, these businessmen that have been in business for years, and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so much spiritual stuff in here that I'm now just like noticing and aware of, because my state is different.
It's
I think,
principles in life, right?
yeah,
And yeah, principles apply.
yeah. Another one on mindset was Miracle Morning. That's kind of probably mindset slash um, habits. Atomic Habit was another one that I really
Mm.
liked.
Atomic
Um,
Habits, a lot of girls in my team have done, and it's really
mm,
helped them.
Easy read too.
Very easy read, and it's got graphics, visuals.
Yes, yes, and I love that. How about you on mindset?
I put Step Into You by Lorraine Murphy. I really liked
Mm,
that one. I think The Infinite Game also came under Mindset by Simon Sinek, because it's the way
yep.
that you think about
Yes.
anything. It's infinite.
Yes.
And in that book he talks about legacy and things living
Mm,
beyond you. And I think, if you've never really learnt about a topic like that, or considered that, it really shifts your perspective. And I think
yep.
when we talk about mindset, it's about things that shift your perspective. So whether
Yep.
that's making your perspective bigger, it's healing your perspective, like you spoke about, like from your past, and helping you have a good, healthy perspective for the present. So that's what mindset helps you
Yeah.
to do. There's also a really good book by Michael Crossland, which is his story. Um, the name of it has eluded me, but Michael Crossland, and also The Boy Who Can Run by
Mm.
Julius and I'm not going to say this name right. Anxious. He is the co-founder of the Love Mercy Foundation, and he's an Olympian, but just amazing. And so those books shift your perspective and your mindset.
Another one for me is A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. This is another spiritual one, but really good for mindset. Just like, about presence and looking at how you're going into things. So really good for me. Actually, it was really good for just my family life, my relationship with Pete, and just me taking accountability and responsibility.
Mm. What about, we had systems and time management, a little bit
Mm-hmm.
more practical. There's The One Thing by Gary Keller, which is a basic
Mm-hmm.
book. If you're at the start of your journey, two books you need to read that are super simple: The 1 Minute Manager and The One Thing by Gary Keller.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have any for systems and time management?
Yeah, I had Clockwork.
Oh, that's a good
So
one.
this is one, basically it's for business owners to be able to go on leave for a month. So it's about systemizing your business, and it's also about empowering your team. So really, really good. And I've implemented that one.
Clockwork.
So
Do
that's
you know the author of that?
Mike McAllowitz.
Yes, I was going to say he's written a few good business books. Anything that you pick up by him would be good as well.
Yep. So I've got him for Money and Finance. Profit First is another one. It is so it's one of those things that, have you read Profit First or
No,
Clockwork?
but you've pretty much
So
told me them. So I feel like I have read them.
yeah, so but you might struggle with them if you don't like that, like detailed systems, because it's really like, this is the way you do it, and this is, so
Yeah, I
I've
can't
had to
cope with
really
that.
like go back and go, oh my gosh, what have I done wrong here? And I think the other thing that I would suggest to people that are reading these sorts of books is be flexible with what you take from it, and and what you leave behind. Because I have this tendency to go, I need to do everything that they say, like from crossing the T's and dotting the I's, and get a bit rigid with it, which can be, yeah,
Well,
it can
I think you have
compromise.
to manage it how you bring it to your team.
Yeah.
And you've read it, but your team haven't in some regards.
Yeah.
So you've just got to watch that. But that's management, right? That's management.
Yeah.
A few business inspirational stories. So books that I've read, which these are good if you're who are on this or what's going to be bigger than me. So Shoe Dog, a memoir by the creator of Nike.
I need to read that
Phenomenal
one.
story by Phil Knight. Phil Knight. And that's just everyone knows about Nike, right? So it's just good to know their company. Hanging by a Thread by Erin Deering. So she created the bikini brand Triangle and then sold that. Awesome book. Chapter 1 by Daniel Flynn. He created the brand Thank You.
Yeah, that is a
Awesome
great book.
Oh my
Loved that book.
gosh.
Yeah.
I've just read that so many times.
Yeah.
And then One Life by Tina Tower, which I found
Mm.
that was really good as well.
Awesome. Yeah, mine, the chapter 1 is definitely, I actually haven't read a lot in terms of like,
Biographies.
yeah,
Really good. They're really good
about it.
Christmas reads.
Yeah,
Really good.
that could be something for holidays.
Yeah, I would highly recommend. It's the best of both worlds.
Actually, what's the one by Matthew McConaughey? That's really good.
Oh, yes.
The
Yes. His
Green Light,
biography.
Green Light,
Yes. His
really good.
biography. Yes. They often have life lessons in there, which are really great.
Yeah.
And then so I guess on the spiritual side, so Lizzie's mentioned a lot on the spiritual things that have helped her. From the, I guess, because I've got that a different perspective, but same sort of principles with
Yeah.
the Christian spiritual. So one of the books that I found really helpful was Poverty, Riches, and Wealth, Moving from a Life of Lack into True Abundance by Chris Valentin. That directly related to business as well. Born for Significance, which is Master the Purpose, Process, and Peril of Promotion, which was really good by Bill Johnson. And the other probably top one I would say is Grace Over Grind by Shay Barnes, which is like we always hear about the grind and the hustle. How do you do it with grace rather than
Yes,
that
love that.
stress?
Love
Um,
that.
and then
I've got spiritual,
yes, sorry,
Super Attractor
yeah.
by Gabby Bernstein.
Oh yes, I've heard of her. Yes, yes.
Yeah. She's got
So
quite a few good ones.
she does, yeah. There's a few other ones, but we might leave it there
Yep.
because there's a whole list. Like we could keep going on and on and on. But if you look at the list, then you highlight, I would really recommend creating a reading plan for yourself because we know with our goals that if we don't set goals, we don't write things down, we're not intentional, things don't happen. And, around this new year period, we can have the best of intentions. You could be so inspired listening to this podcast, but if it doesn't equate to you actually doing, it's pointless. So put a plan together for yourself. It might be one book a quarter. It might be one book every 6 months, whatever you can cope with. There's no right or wrong. Just make it realistic so you don't feel like you're failing all the time or berating yourself. And if you're also not sure what topics would be relevant to you, one strategy that I recommend to my team is I say there's always a synopsis of the book on YouTube, and they those people that draw out the book. So I always say, and I do this myself, is I go and look at the YouTube snippet of like 3 minutes. I might go and listen to the author do a podcast interview for modern day authors. I will listen to that, and then that will help me determine whether to give myself to the book and read the book or not. And a few times I've been on the edge and I've gone, no, I'm not going to do that book. That's not right. After looking at the YouTube or the podcast. But I did that with all the Patrick Lencioni ones because I was like, this is a big commitment. This is going to take me a lot of time and effort. But I knew that they were right after listening to his podcast. So that's a little tip there before you jump into the book. I think as well, like, so that's for you as a person, like developing and growing, reading different types of books. Make sure you've got your novels there for a bit of fun if you like that. But also, I guess we've got to think about our clients and our children. The clinical side is that children learn through toys, but also through books. So it's encouraging parents, talking about that with parents. I've just created a new ebook, which is on my Emily Mackey website. And it's called Read Aloud, Talk Aloud. And it's about increasing your child's language skills through reading, and it's written for parents. So you can recommend that to parents. I've just broken everything down. I've used my love of reading and created that because we know that it's such a good way to get children to learn and to grow and develop. So we hope that you've loved this podcast today. We encourage you to get the freebie. We encourage you to read and share your learnings with us, or share your top books. If we've got any gaps in there, we'd love to help others. The more we can collaborate, the more we can share together. So until next time, get reading and enjoy.